Hi again, everyone. For this one, again, I'm going to keep this kind of short because I would like to have you spend kind of the second lecture, the second part of our flipped experience, applying some of the assessment things that we talked about the week that I left. And so I see this also as kind of practice even for your own lesson plan, which will be due on November 18th. As we talked about in that lecture, that assessment can take a lot of different directions, and we want to talk about it with academic language. But a lot of times when you're dealing with technology, kind of sometimes the best way to deal with that is to develop a rubric that then identifies the elements or the criteria that you are looking for as you design a lesson. And so there again, how we kind of connected that, the objectives to the assessment. So your assignment for this piece is to kind of capitalize over what you did in lab this week. If you haven't had lab, it's not like you can't do this assignment, but it might be an easier assignment to do after you've experienced creating your thing link. So as it says here, you've created your thing link. Now, what I'd like you to think about is some learning objectives that could be written for such a lesson in an elementary classroom or a younger learning space, and then an assessment tool that you would design for evaluating such a lesson with those objectives. Your goal would be to include, as always, at least for me, the condition, the behavioral verb, and the criteria for the learning objectives. Now, I'm going to make this a little bit, hopefully, easier for you. I've written the objectives. So if I was doing a thing link lesson on what you guys just did in lab, this is what 3 of my objectives might be for that lesson. I'm not going to read each one of them, and notice I didn't highlight the parts in every one of them. I just did the first one to kind of remind you that, as you put your lesson plan together and your objectives for your lesson plan, make sure that you have those 3 parts. But the first one, after viewing a short introductory video on habitats, students will orally explain what a habitat is and why it is important with 100% accuracy. Okay. Number 3, after conducting research and gathering resources on the habitat selected, it's kind of what you guys did. Students will include a description of the following somewhere in their thing link with 100% accuracy: their location, the non-living things, the animals, the plants, and the climate. Again, you guys did this, and then that's how we did an activity where you had to create something using technology that's address all of these elements, okay? So think about that and use that. So this is your assignment, and think about it as, you guys, this is practice, okay? I'm just having you practice this. What I really want you to do is create a rubric using the 3 objectives stated on the last slide. And you guys, in the flip lecture, I give you the slides to this, okay? So you'll be able to access this as a handout to guide your development. Explore the online assessment tools. What I've done is I've put the ones that I introduced you to in lecture last week in a folder. And so it gives you them in one area, and you can explore them a little bit. But as step 3 states, I'd kind of like you to try Rubistar to create a rubric that could be used to assess the criteria stated in these objectives. Okay? So I gave you the objectives, but now you have to pull the criteria you want from those objectives and make a rubric. Okay? So kind of figure out what are the things that you have to pull out, and then see how it works, okay? You must have at least 3 criteria stated, a rating scale for at least 3 levels, and then complete the meanings and definition for each scale item. Now, what do I mean by that? You guys, this is the one that I did on war stories that I showed you in lecture, okay? So this is kind of what I mean. You have to have 3 criteria. In this case, it's content, point of view, and teamwork, okay? And then you have to have 3 levels of that you want to assess. Guys, it doesn't have to be excellent, satisfactory, needs improvement. It can be what you want it to be. And then you have to fill in the meanings for each of those. And remember, excellent has to look different than needs improvement, okay? Satisfactory needs to look different from excellent, okay? So keep that in mind as you design it, okay? As I go back to this one, you guys, this one is almost, it is orally explained, is your verb, okay? You should be able to see that, but this habitat and why it's important, that's probably part of really your criteria too. That would be. I highlighted 100% accuracy because that definitely is, but in writing the rubric, you probably would have to pull some of that, what is the habitat and why it's important and so forth, okay? So keep that in mind. So the last thing is, important, you have to bring a printed copy of your rubric to class with you on Tuesday, November 15th. I will only accept a printed copy for this, okay? And you have to be in lecture then to hand that in, okay? So obvious reasons, but we are going to look at that. And do remember, so this is, you'll make a rubric, and then do remember 3 days later, the lesson plan is due. So I'm hoping that as you practice with this and build your skills, it will help you in developing your assessment for your lesson plan. And I will state here, it probably looks like, oh, well then she must want a rubric for that lesson plan, or they want that rubric. Not necessarily. Again, not necessarily at all. I've talked to several of you who have other ideas for assessment, and that's fine. But I personally don't think you can get too much practice on designing rubrics because you're going to use those throughout your career, okay? So it's great. There's no form for this one. There's nothing. All you have to do is create the rubric, print the rubric out, and bring it with you to class, okay? And again, I probably should say you can use any, you don't have to use Rubistar. If I was just beginning to do this on my own, that's the one that I would use. I think that's the simplest one, and it sets it up pretty nicely for you. But you're welcome to create that rubric any way that you want. But it should, when you see it, it should look like a rubric. Okay? Okay, so there's your Thursday flipped lecture. And good luck, and kind of enjoy rolling up your sleeves and doing something that, real teachers do all the time. So you have a great week, and I will look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday. Bye-bye.